Basic Brewing Radio is sponsored in part by the American Homebrewers Association. This holiday season, give back to the brewing community. When you join the American Homebrewers Association, through December 15th, purchase an annual membership, and the American Homebrewers Association will make a $5 donation to your choice of Beer for Boobs, Soldiers, Angels, Hops for Heroes, or the Michael James Jackson Foundation for Brewing and Distilling. Learn more about these nonprofits and how to donate directly by visiting homebrewersassociation.org/basicbrewing. And let's give back together. That's homebrewersassociation.org/basicbrewing. Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, December 8th, 2022. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week, Chris Colby, author of the Homebrew Recipe Bible, Methods of Modern Homebrewing, How to Make Hard Seltzer, and editor of beerandgardeningjournal.com, joins me to formulate a recipe for raspberry wheat. We also taste the holiday ale that we came up with the previous time we got together. If you go to basicbrewing.com, you can find archives of our audio and video shows. If you go to basicbrewingshop.com, you can find our DVDs and our brewer's logbooks. If you want to support us financially, check out patreon.com/basicbrewing, and many thanks to everybody who's helping out in that way. If you go to patreon.com/basicbrewing, you can see a long list of stuff that you can access if you sign up as a supporter. Financial supporters have already seen the video episode I'm releasing to the general public at the end of this week. It's the one where Steve Wilkes shares his experiment and different methods of back sweetening a mead. That was a very fun show to do, and we learned something, and it was tasty. Many thanks to those who sent in stories for our annual disaster show. Steve and I recorded that yesterday, and Steve got a bingo on his disaster show bingo card. We also sampled beers from homebrewer Scott Housel down in Florida, and we actually heard Scott's voice as he described what we were sampling. Thanks to technology. Spoiler, we liked everything Scott sent us. We also sampled a beer that Steve brewed that he called a disaster. So you'll have to tune in to see what we thought about that. I'll be posting a show next week. Then it's a week off for Christmas with the family. And then we'll be back doing audio show the last week of the year with the disaster show. More than 90 minutes of fun, if I recall. There's bad news and good news from our friends Ricky and Kelly from Groenfell and Havoc Meaderies up in Vermont. The bad news is that they're all out of winter warmer. The good news is that they're releasing some of their reserve stock of bourbon barrel-aged Braggie in time for the holidays. This special mead is 12.5% ABV with wildflower honey, black currant juice, elderflowers, juniper berries, and rose hips, and it's aged, of course, in bourbon barrels. You can use the DIY case builder to save 10 to 20%. Also, there are still a few holiday bundles left at groenfell.com. You can find things like the 12 Days of Christmas Surprise Mead Sampler or the 8/9 of Mead Blessings. Order Bourbon Barrel Braggie and or the holiday bundles by December 11th to ensure on-time delivery before the big day. Check out all the honey-based deliciousness at family-owned and operated groenfell.com. That's GROENNFELL. Okay, I was nervous about this one, to be honest. I sent Chris Colby a couple of my holiday ales to try. What'll he think? Let's find out. Chris Colby, welcome back to Basic Brewing Radio.
Hello, who is it? I'm kidding. Thanks for having me on the
show. There's been some mistake. You've been sipping on the beers already. You're the editor now of Beer and Gardening Journal.
Correct.
And I saw an article recently where you're doing an experiment on planting quote unquote seed garlic and just like grocery store garlic.
Yep.
And that's a fun experiment to do.
Yeah.
And there are other fun things coming down the pike, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I've got, like, experiment-wise, I planted some hard-neck garlic separately. The kind of garlic you get in a grocery store is generally soft-neck garlic. And so I planted soft neck garlic from the grocery store versus, uh, quote unquote seed uh, soft neck garlic, which is just you just pull the cloves and plant each clove is a seed. Um, and so I've got the soft neck versus soft neck, supermarket versus seed going, and then I've got it's sort of half-assed. The other one is just I've got a separate planter full of hard neck and just gonna see how that goes. So yeah, it should be pretty cool.
I thought being down in Texas, you'd have redneck garlic, but that's that's another thing.
That's a different thing.
I sent you a beer or two.
You did.
I sent you 2 beers, in fact.
6 beers.
We get 3 of each.
Two types, yeah.
Yeah, 3 untinctured and 3 tinctured. And this is a recipe that we came up with on a previous recipe development show.
Sure.
This is the holiday ale. Let me go over the recipe again. This is a 2-gallon batch, and I got 18 beers out of it total, just FYI. So 2 gallons or 7.5 liters. I did 5 pounds or 2.27 kilograms of crisp Maris Otter, 4 ounces or 113 grams of chocolate malt, 2 ounces or 56 grams of 60 Lovibond Crystal, 1 ounce or 28 grams of Black Patent, and I did a mash and collected the wort and boiled for, 45 minutes. And then to complete the list of fermentables, 15 minutes before the end of that 60-minute boil, I added 1 pound or 450 grams of Pilsen light dry malt extract. So this is a partial mash beer. The mash was 150 degrees Fahrenheit or 65 C for an hour. And then the boil was 60 minutes, 1 hop addition at the beginning of that, 1 ounce or 28 grams of Czech Satz at 3.2% alpha acid. I used Imperial 809 Pub, original gravity 1083, final gravity 1014 for an ABV of 9.1%. Oh, and in the original recipe that we put together on the show, you specified 4 pounds of Maris Otter instead of the 5 that I used. I went ahead and, I looked at some other recipes of this volume that I had done in this way in the past, and I figured that I wasn't going to be able to hit the starting gravity. So I went ahead and added another pound or 450 grams of Maris Otter, and I'm glad I did because I was only like a point or two off. I think the target original gravity was like 1084 or something like that, and I hit 1083.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. So I goosed up the fermentables a bit. And then I transferred the beer after it was fermented into a Mr. Beer keg. I didn't ferment it in that. I used it as a bottling bucket essentially, and then I had tinctures. Oh, should I make you guess maybe I'll make you guess what the tinctures are.
There you go. Guess the tincture.
Guess the tincture. So I'm going to open mine. I only have the tinctured one. I don't have the plain one, and they're still undercarbonated.
Should I do the tinctured?
Yeah, do the plain one first.
Plain one? No spices?
Yeah, do the plain.
Plain one.
I can't remember what I labeled it.
It says no spice.
Oh, no spice. There we go.
The least popular Spice Girl.
She just never showed up.
Just like this.
So, I've got, and there's no head at all on mine. But I think, it'll come eventually. One thing is that Pub, it really is flocculent, and so maybe I should have added some more yeast, at bottling time, especially with a beer this big, 9.1%. But it'll get there eventually.
Yeah, there's yeast sediment on the bottom of these bottles, so you're not completely lacking in yeast. But yeah, mine has a very thin, almost non-existent amount of foam. It's a little under. I've still got bottles of this left, so I'll just set them out in the warmth.
Yeah, maybe by Christmas time they'll be.
Yeah,
mine will be gone by Christmas time, but.
It's a Christmas miracle it is.
God bless us, everyone.
God bless us, everyone.
So what do you think? Have you taken a sip yet? I'm nervous because I don't know that you've ever had any of my homebrew. I don't know.
You sent me a Frankenberry wheat once, didn't you? I'm pretty
Did I?
sure. Yeah. Okay, yeah, this is strong. You can taste that that's a strong beer. It's malty. There's nice maltiness to it.
And feel free to tell me if there are any defects, any fermentation flaws, or anything.
Other than the lack of carbonation, I'm not detecting any diacetyl, any phenol, phenolics, anything astray. The aroma is good too. It's not, sometimes with these bigger beers, it can be easy to let the fermentation temperature run amok, and then it gets either too estery or even into the, sort of quote unquote fusel oils.
Right.
But no, this tastes overall good. I'm just gonna have to make sure to carbonate those other bottles, because I think this will like the expression of especially the dark malts is going to come out a lot better when it's carbonated.
I get in the plain version. I get molasses, or I got molasses in the in the malt.
I guess there's something reminiscent of that.
I think it's good.
It could be a combination of the sweetness and what did we use for crystal? Was it like Crystal 60?
Yes. 2 ounces of 60 Lovibond crystal.
Yeah, I think because that can have like in a sweet beer, almost like a toffee like thing. And then in a slightly darker beer, it might be interpreted as molasses.
Yeah, it's a little sweet, but like you said, I think the carbonation, once it comes in, will add a bit of brightness or a bit of sharpness that'll counteract that a bit.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it's a big beer, and it's supposed to be a winter warmer, so a little bit of sweetness isn't something that you would ding it for.
Yeah.
Also, if it's undercarbonated right now, a little bit of the sweetness might be just the priming sugar hasn't been completely consumed.
Yeah, I carbonated with carb drops, those candy-looking things. So open the second one. Open the tinctured one and see.
All right.
See what you think about that. See if I ruined it.
It's tincture time.
Because I kind of panicked because I've got these little those little plastic pipettes, and I was dosing the beer in the Mr. Beer Keg with these tinctures, and then I got palate fatigue, and I couldn't. It was like I couldn't taste anymore. It was like, oh no! So I called Susan in to kind of help me, guide the flavoring here.
Yeah, it's like when you're making a batch of chili, and you're like, "Is that spicy enough?" And I don't know. So you add a little bit more, and then you add a little bit more, a few more peppers, and then you're like, "Wait a second, am I just, is my palate just wrecked right now?" And I'm just making
And your spouse or dinner guests are their eyes are watering at supper time.
Yeah.
Jennifer's thinking, "You did it again." So have you got the second one poured?
Yeah, I just tried it. That's interesting. Is there vanilla in it?
Ding ding. Yes, that's one.
One of them. Okay.
There are 2 more tinctures. The vanilla is not a tincture; it's just vanilla extract.
Vanilla. Okay. I probably won't be able to guess the others, but let me try.
And it may be a good thing if they're balanced enough to where you can't just like say, "Ooh, that's whatever."
Right. Yeah, I get the vanilla, and I'm not sure if I'm really detecting the others. In fact, I'm sure I'm not. I don't know what they are.
Well, in the tinctures that I made, I took half a cup of vodka, and I put ingredients in that half a cup. So what the other things in there? It was 5 milliliters of oak tincture.
Okay.
And 6 milliliters of cinnamon tincture.
Oh, okay. Cinnamon. Let me try see if I can taste the cinnamon.
Yeah, the cinnamon is in the background. if at all.
Yeah, it's not really. I bet when it's carbonated, it'll come through more. But right now, I don't get that a lot. And the
Cool.
oak is pretty subtle too. So, but yeah, that's good. I mean,
Is it an improvement?
that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, the plain beer is good. It's a big malty dark beer. I don't know. I think the spiced beer is a bit of improvement. I think the vanilla is just, it's not overpowering. Like it's not, like, oh, I'm drinking a vanilla beer. It's like, I'm drinking a dark beer, and there's that, a little bit of, yeah. I think I like the spiced version a little bit better, and I'm excited to try it carbonated.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, excellent. I'm very relieved. And and you don't get, because there's, however many milliliters of vodka added to the second beer.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get any kind of like a alcohol warming, or do you detect that the amount of alcohol has been increased in the second one?
I didn't really get that it would, the first one was, was strong, definitely. And I could not detect a shift in the ABV, but I had 3 sips of beer by then, so.
Well, excellent. Well, it's lagering weather around here, and our friends and sponsors at Imperial Organic Yeast have you covered with L25 Hygge, spelled Hygge. Hygge is a Northern European lager yeast famously used in Pilsner-style beers that complements significant hop additions, clean and crisp with a very light sulfur profile. Well, that sounds dang tasty. I mentioned it last week, but I've got 2 empty kegs in the kegerator that are just wanting to be filled with deliciously crisp and hoppy lagers. Maybe a Pilsner with some corn or rice, or maybe a slightly darker, more malty beer to go with it. The recommended temperature range for Hygge is 46 to 56 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 8 to 13 C, which sounds about right for my basement this time of year. Or, since the kegerator is empty, I'll probably ferment in there to get more precise control. We love Imperial Organic Yeast with 200 billion cells in each easy-to-open package. I like to say my stir plate is dusty because I don't use it anymore for moderate gravity 5-gallon batches, and my airlocks are usually bubbling before bedtime. Ask your local homebrew store about Imperial Organic Yeast and L25 Hygge, and check them out at imperialyeast.com. That's imperialyeast.com. Now we're shifting gears, and this is a beer that we're going to talk about today. And you say that you're interested in brewing a batch,
Yeah.
which has me excited. Because I've tasted I think the first time we ever met in person, you had a keg of something that you brewed, and I can't remember what it was. But so I've had your homebrew before.
Yeah. You came over and did a video episode of the barley field in my side yard at one point.
Yeah, I think that might have been the second time we'd met in person, or
All right, yeah. No, we
because-
met at Austin Homebrew once.
Yeah, and had a roundtable discussion of something, or
Yeah.
tasted an experiment, or
And I think I brought a Scottish ale, if I'm remembering.
that sounds right. That sounds right. I'm sure.
That must have been awful. At that point, I was totally snake bit on making a decent, like I could make a decent ale, sort of, but it just didn't have that. I don't know. It didn't have the character I wanted in a Scottish ale anymore.
So you brought it for us to enjoy.
Yeah, pawned it off on you guys. There you go.
So what's the beer that we're gonna formulate today?
Well, what have we done so far? It's like we did a lager, right?
Yeah, we
did a lager and a big beer, and
yeah. So this is the third. We didn't actually brew the first one that we
Nope.
that we talked about. But
I thought a good one would be a fruit beer, because we haven't done any fruit beers, and I specifically thought that doing a raspberry wheat would be good, because we could also talk about just German wheat beers, because that's the base as well. And also it's just it's like from way back in the day, when people first, when homebrewing first started, or maybe it was the second time it actually started kicking in. Uh, if people were gonna make a fruit beer, like raspberry wheat was one of the more popular ones,
Hmm.
and still is, I think.
And I think that it seems like I heard that a lot of times when wheat beers didn't go well, like in a brew pub situation, they would put some fruit in it. Put some fruit in it, kind of disguise the flaws of the beer. Surely not.
And yeah, another great thing about brewing a raspberry wheat as a home brew is that raspberries are strongly flavored, and so it's relatively easy to get the right amount of raspberry in there. Because like with a lot of spice beers, sometimes you add however much the recipe says, and either you can't taste it or it's knocking your tongue off. With raspberries, I guess the variation how intensely flavored raspberries are is relatively low. I don't recall eating a flavorless raspberry ever.
No.
Um, and just given that it's relatively intensely flavored, it's easy to make a nice. It makes a nice fruit beer. It's the base is nice, the German fruit beer or German wheat beer, and then the raspberries add. They're not intensely sweet fruit, so they work well in a beer because they don't need a ton of sweetness behind them, and also they add like a decent amount of astringency to the beer, like which normally in beer that's a bad thing, but with the fruit flavor, it's a little bit to go along with that because you normally taste that in raspberries. Works well. So yeah, it's of fruit beers, it's one of my favorites.
Oh, nice. So let's talk about the base beer then. Hey, let's talk about the malt. And you've got your spreadsheet on your computer there, so we're actually going to build the recipe as we go along.
Yep.
So it's a wheat beer, but and I made a Belgian wit with no barley. We're not going to do it with this beer, right?
No, we'll go pretty much. Well, there's one of two ways we can take it. We can go sort of a straight up German Hefeweizen style, Weiss beer, or we can modify it a little bit since obviously the German style would never include raspberries.
Yeah.
That sort of sets us free from feeling that we need to be restricted to an actual traditional German everything to it,
Right.
or everything else to it. Yeah, good. I mean, another nice thing about raspberry wheat beers or wheat beers in general is that the recipe is really simple. So, I mean, it comes down to, I like beers like that where the recipe is sort of simple because it means that, it's as the brewer, you're going to be what makes it good. It's not going to be that it's this big, complicated, mess of a recipe. It's that, you've taken a small number of ingredients and turned it into something good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in the case of like a wheat beer, the grist is always just wheat malt and barley malt. For Belgian wheat styles, you might have some unmalted wheat thrown in there, but for a German wheat beer and like most American wheat beers, it's wheat malt and barley malt together. And for sort of American wheat beers, a lot of times it's a 50-50 blend of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in German Weiss beers, it's usually closer to 70-30, 70% wheat malt and 30% barley malt. So that's a good starting point. And we could, you can also hybridize it. We go 60-40, split the difference. It's all good.
So if you have it's been a long time since I've brewed with a mash tun, but if you've got a 70% wheat base, do you do things like add rice hulls or something to, big wheat beers are notorious, or beers that have a lot of wheat in them are notorious for sticking up the mash tun. Do you take an insurance precaution?
In a lot of the like old school homebrewing texts, they always sort of almost reflexively recommended rice hulls, and the idea was that enough wheat in your grist, and you're going to get all, it's going to get all gummy, and you're going to have trouble lautering. But in practice, most people, almost everyone I've talked to has not had any problems using wheat malt. And I mean, I think the the big things, if you're worried about a sticky mash in a standard, wheat and barley malt mix, really, if you mash out at the end, raise the temperature to between 168 and 170 Fahrenheit, and just sparge with hot enough water and go slowly enough, you're going to be fine. You could probably even, you don't necessarily need to go super slow. Like I don't make wort collection take longer than the normal, but I just normally go through wort collection at what I consider a reasonable pace. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about rice hulls in a beer like this.
So what's our starting gravity?
I don't know. For something like a raspberry wheat, I would be shooting for like a super high gravity beer, but I wouldn't be shooting for a low gravity beer either. I want it to be pretty solidly in the in that middle range. For me, an OG of 1048 through 1052, anything in there I think would make a great wheat beer.
Yeah.
For this specific purpose.
So let's go to the spreadsheet then and start building our recipe.
Let's go to the sheet. Okay, what do we want the mix of yeast or of wheat malt to barley malt be?
Well, you're brewing this one. Let's go 60% wheat.
60-40. Okay, gotcha. And what are we shooting for initial gravity?
Just 10. And you just want to go for 1050?
Sure.
1050?
1050. Sounds good. Okay, so I'm gonna wheat malt. Start out with 6 pounds of wheat malt and 4 pounds of Pilsner malt for a 5-gallon batch. I guess it's 1057. Okay, so that's a little high.
Just knock off half a pound of each, or 227 grams of each.
Yeah, because I'm not gonna be super concerned about hitting exactly 60-40.
So no extract with this one. This is just going to be all grain. And would you do like a lower temperature, ferulic acid rest or anything with this, wheat beer?
Yeah, a ferulic acid rest is meant to provide more precursors that lead to that 4-vinyl guaiacol.
Mm-hmm.
It's for a more clovey beer. For this one, on the clove banana balance, I think since we've got raspberries in it, I would shoot more for the balance a little bit more towards the banana, just because banana and raspberries, that seems like a no. Like raspberries and cloves, I can't think of any recipes where, hey, it's raspberries and cloves together. Awesome.
Oh boy.
But, raspberries and bananas, sure, that's yeah, so and also like unless you've brewed a beer, a German wheat beer, and you just are dying to get more cloves into it, that just seems the ferulic acid rest seems like an extra step to me. That you can manipulate the amount of clove normally by a little bit lower fermentation temperature, a little bit higher pitching rate, that sort of thing, and that's gonna basically what that does is lowers the amount of banana to the point that the clove stands out more. But yeah, I mean, if you wanted a super clovey one, then there's the yeast choice too, which some are more clove and some are more wheat.
Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming that this isn't about hops. So are we just talking about a bitterness addition at the beginning of the boil?
Yeah, I mean, you want enough hops in this beer to be oh, hey, my spreadsheet does give the percentage of malts when you type in the amounts. What do you know?
You're smarter than you thought.
I learn something new about my spreadsheet all the time. Ooh, and there I got it pretty much exactly 60-40.
There you go.
And 1050 OG. Whew,
Hey.
Hey. Yeah, I got 3.6 pounds of Pilsner malt and 5.0. I've got it backwards. No, I've got it. Sorry. 5.25 pounds of wheat malt. So yeah, I've got more wheat malt then. Okay. So that worked. Yeah, what were we talking about?
Hops.
Hops, yeah. Yeah. For something like this, you don't want the hops to compete a ton with the fruit, and also there's the whole yeast derived, flavors from the wheat malt. So like, you don't want like a double IPA, hop bill on this because just covering up everything that you're working on in other respects. But, I would say enough hops, they're gonna just a little bit of bitterness, like is gonna help sort of pair with the astringency from the fruit and be a nice thing. I would say, something like 12 to 14 IBUs of, like Tettnang or Spalt or Hallertau or, any of those,
Sots.
Sots. Yeah. Any of those good noble. And you could even use any American hop that's relatively neutral as well, but yeah, not a ton of it.
How many IBUs? 12?
We can go for 12. Yeah.
A dozen?
Let's see. On a 5-gallon scale, if you've got an ounce with 4% alcohol, that's 11. That's pretty good.
That's good.
11 should work.
That's easy.
Yeah.
As I said in a previous show, I've gotten to where I like to use whole ounces of things rather than because I don't like leftover little baggies of hops in the freezer because I feel guilty about throwing them out and then until they're too old and then I can.
Yeah, I used to calculate recipes out to like 3 decimal points and have just crazy like fractional ounces of 16.782 ounces or something, and now I'm just like for pound stuff, rounded off to the nearest pound for ounces, rounded off to the nearest ounces, and just unless there's some really good reason that ratio I had was just
right,
just golden. Now I'm just like, nah, whatever.
So in the fermentation specific or the characteristics, we're going more for banana. So how does that?
I'd say pretty much a normal ale pitching rate would work well, and then a sort of middle of the road ale like temperature, because I mean we don't really need to accentuate the banana. I mean if we did, then we would accentuate the banana. I'm cracking myself up.
You've had some beer.
So 4 sips of beer. And I'm making banana jokes. If we really wanted to make it like strongly smelling of banana, we would lower the pitching rate a little and then ferment it at a higher, But I think just hit a normal wheat beer level of banana, and that's going to work well. It's gonna the raspberry is still going to be as it should be. I think the sort of star of the show, as it were. But there's enough balancing in the or enough pairing with the banana flavor that it should be pretty good.
And I looked at Imperial's website before we got on, and probably the one that you would use is G01 Stefan. But what are the other flavors that you've used with this kind of recipe?
Is that the Weinsteffen strain?
I don't know.
That sort of sounds like it with Stefan.
I guess we could look it up somewhere, but
yeah, there's there's a bunch of wheat beer strains out there, but the Yeast 3068 is the Weinsteffen Weizen, and White Labs WLP 300 is their Hefeweizen ale, and those are both supposedly from the same from the Weinsteffen. I'm not sure how to pronounce it exactly.
Just have enough beer and it won't matter.
Or just pronounce it wrong and someone will write to the show and excuse me, but I believe your pronunciation was not quite correct.
Surely not.
Yeah.
People don't do that, do they?
Well, there's that joke. If you really want to find something out by asking the question on the internet, like don't just ask the question, but either state something wrong about it or I read the one person would write the question straight, but then they would log in under a different account and give a wrong answer just get some know-it-all to show up and, excuse me, I believe the answer you're looking for.
With citations and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, which is great. If they're going to do all that work just to put somebody down, and it's...
Our friends and sponsors, Desiree and Dave of High Gravity in Tulsa, are having a sale on money in the month of December. That's right, in December, when you buy a gift certificate on highdgravitybrew.com of any denomination that they sell, or dominations, no, that's something else. You can get 10% off. No code necessary. The 10% discount will be applied automatically at checkout. So tell Santa to go to highdgravitybrew.com to pick up a gift certificate, and he or she will save 10%. So you'll save 10% when you buy ingredients on the Build Your Own Beer page, or when you pick up some delicious beer kits, or when you apply that gift certificate toward excellent Warthog electric brewing controllers and systems. And smart shoppers will also remember that you can save $75 off Warthog gear when you use the code EBC75BB. What a deal! Take the pain out of propane when you or Santa picks up a gift certificate at 10% off for the month of December. No code necessary at family-owned and operated highdgravitybrew.com. That's highdgravitybrew.com. We haven't talked about water. I guess we should have started with water, maybe. But anything interesting in the water profile?
Yeah, you don't need anything like super interesting. It's a pale beer, so just keep carbonates under control. I actually think in a wheat beer, like a little bit higher carbonate level isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like a little, not you don't want stout or porter brewing water, but so any water that would be suitable for brewing a pale beer is good, and you don't particularly need like a ton of sulfate or a ton of or worry about the sulfate to chloride ion ratio or anything like that you would in sort of big hoppy beers. So yeah, just a mellow. Just get enough calcium in there, keep the carbonates low, and you should be golden.
And then we come to the fruit. Are we ready to talk about fruit?
Fruit. Yep.
We want raspberries. So do we want fresh or do we want frozen, or does it matter?
Every time I brew this, I've used fresh raspberries, and it's worked out great. But I know a lot of people love fruit puree, and from all accounts, that works great. I would say either of those. Given how strong the flavor of raspberries is, I mean, I've never done it, but I'm assuming frozen would work okay, as long as it's, it hasn't sat in your freezer forever and got freezer burn and all that. But yeah, I would either go with fresh fruit or the puree.
I know that the Oregon Fruit Company, they sent me an email a while back. They're working on some new packaging for their homebrew based fruit purees. They've been they come in those giant cans, but they're working on some packaging that's more like pouches, resealable pouches. And they say they're going to send me some, but I haven't seen them yet. So keep your eye out for that.
Another nice thing about puree is that you don't have to wait till the fruit is in season. Mm-hmm. So right now, if I wanted to get fresh raspberries at the store, it'd be like, hey, that's great, but it's winter, dummy.
And they say sometimes if it's handled properly, frozen fruits and vegetables are sometimes fresher than fresh.
If the freezing plant is right there, sometimes they can be. It's like they say why supermarket tomatoes are terrible, but canned tomatoes are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
It's because the canning plants are literally right next to the tomato fields.
Yeah. And
so they, bring them there, steam the skins off, and boom, make a sauce out of them or paste or whatever.
So how much for a 5-gallon or a 19-liter batch? How much fruit?
Yeah, fruit. You basically add, the more intense the flavor is, the less you need to add. And raspberry is nice because about a half a pound a gallon is a really good range for that. Like twice that, like a pound per gallon is good for like cherries and stuff like that, which are slightly less intensely. And then when you get to things like peaches or whatever, then you're maybe multiple pounds per gallon to get a good flavor. But for and for cranberry, it's not. And I'm just sort of reeling off fruit and numbers. For cranberries, it's even less than that. But for half a pound per gallon is a really solid amount for raspberry wheat beer. It's going to make a nice red color, and it'll give a balanced raspberry flavor. It's not going to be like a soda pop, but it's not going to be, you're not necessarily going to be hunting for the raspberry flavor in it either. It's going to be solidly raspberry.
And I hardly ever use a secondary fermenter these days, but this is an instance where you probably want to, right?
Oh yeah. This is what you want to do is you ferment the beer to start with, and then once it's basically done, or even just slightly, still going but not quite done, put the raspberries in the bottom of a bucket fermenter. And if you want, you can put them in a like a nylon bag, or you can just free float them if you want. That might cause problems when you're racking later. But so put them in a nylon bag, and then just rack the fermenting beer or almost fermented beer on top of them, and then just seal the bucket up. Give it a week to 10 days of contact time. You don't want to go forever. Like if you were making a lambic, you would have a ton of contact time, but then you just have less fruit. But you're not making a lambic, you're making a raspberry wheat. So you're gonna get 7 to 10 days is fine. The first few, to 3 or 4, maybe 5, you're gonna get most of the extraction of all the fruit flavors and stuff. And then after that, the next few you're gonna start getting, that's gonna start dropping, and you're gonna start getting a little more of the tanniny stuff like that, which is good. You want some. But 7 to 10 days is a good amount of contact time.
And since you haven't stabilized the beer, there's going to be an additional fermentation happening then.
Yeah. I forget the percentage. Raspberries don't have that much. There's probably a table somewhere. Don't have that much sugar in them, but they got enough that you're definitely going to restart a fermentation by adding some. And so also the 7 to 10 days just lets that second one. It's really the secondary fermentation is really only going to last a couple days at best.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll give that time to go. And if you want to, you don't really have to, but it's maybe a good thing to do. Sanitize like a potato masher, just the manual potato masher, and open up the bucket fermenter once a day and just sort of push the fruit down a little bit. It'll pop right back up, but just it just mix it up a little bit, sort of like almost like a punch down in wine.
Huh. But
make sure you're using a sterile potato masher. And also I would probably do that, maybe if you're still getting gurgling in the airlock, I would go ahead and do those little punch downs. But after that quits, I'd probably just say, no, I'm just going to leave it alone.
Mm-hmm.
You might get slightly less than extraction that you could, but you also, at that point, you could start priming it to go stale early if you're exposing it to air.
Mm. And you might be contaminating it with the dog walks by and sneezes or something. You never know.
Yeah.
So what are your tricks for separating the beer from the fruit then? I mean, do you have any kind of like filtering system, or, like when you're racking to say a bottling bucket or to a keg? Do you have any tricks?
Well, if it's all in a nylon bag, then it's pretty easy. You just siphon it away, and then the bag should, the mesh of the bag should keep all the stuff inside it. Yeah, if it's just floating free, then that just usually leads to a lot of cursing from me. and then you just got to pull the wrecking cane out and clean the tip, and hopefully not get your hands all over it. And yeah,
I've seen years ago. I saw some posts where people, had like put some sort of mesh or some sort of filtering device around, the end of their racking wand or their auto siphon.
Yeah.
But it seems like that could clog up fairly easily too.
Yeah, some people will tie like a nylon hop bag or nylon steeping bag to the end, but then like you say, that
it just vacuums up all the stuff and sticks it to the
yeah.
It doesn't come through, but neither does the beer, I guess.
You can also, on something like that, if after that time, if most of because for a while all the fruit's going to come to the top of the fermenter, it's going to have bubbles attached to it, but then there gets to be a point where it's going to, like, most of it is going to sink to the bottom. And if it's already sunk to the bottom, you can start siphoning off the top, and then you only have to worry about it when you get close to the bottom. But if it's still solidly, like, everything's on top and floating, then start at the very bottom, and you don't have to worry about it till the last minute.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get to the end, sometimes it's like you could knock yourself out and spend an extra 20 minutes getting the last few drops of beer out of there. I figure all that time is exposure to oxygen time, and I usually just cut it. There's a point where I'm saying, like, okay, I'm not going to get every last drop, but at least the drops I already have, are not going to be ruined because I'm, trying to get another 6 ounces.
So you're not grabbing the fruit bag and squeezing it over the bottling
bucket?
No,
I don't do that. Yeah.
Being greedy. Sounds like something I'd do. There's beer in there. And carbonation, I guess, is the only thing left. Maybe is this a highly carbonated beer?
Yeah, carbonation is a key in this. In German wheat beers, they come in those heavy bottles for a reason. And when you pour them into a wheat beer glass, they have that huge foam stand on them, and that's because they are heavily carbonated. So with a beer like this, the usual, like, American Pilsner or American Craft Ale has got about 2.6 volumes of CO2, 2.5, 2.6, something like that, depending on the beer. With a beer like this, you can go up to about 4 volumes of CO2.
Wow.
Which is it's less than, champagne is like 6. And for if you're going to go sort of strictly German wheat beer, probably keep it to 3 or under, high 2s to low 3s. But yeah, you want a good amount of carbonation, and that's going to come out, and it's going to make also a lot of foam. It's going to smell good because raspberries are fairly aromatic, and you're only and also you're going to want to bottle condition this. German wheat beers are bottle conditioned, and you don't necessarily have to stick to that, especially because you're doing some very un-German thing by adding raspberries to it. But it certainly, with the wheat beer strains, getting some bottle conditioning is a good thing. And also, if you're kegging it and you want it to be more carbonated, then you have to mess with your serving lines and all that. And also with a raspberry beer, there's enough raspberries in it that if you use it to serve the raspberry beer, then it's a dedicated raspberry beer, line. Unless you clean it really super well, immediately after you're done. So yeah, in this case, I would go. I would just drink a bunch of wheat beer first, and then bottle it in those bottles.
And at what level of carbonation do you have to? How many volumes of CO2 do you have to be concerned? What's the limit of like regular beer bottles? What above what limit do you not want to use those?
I don't really have a definitive answer, but I mean, just certainly, like, in personal practice, if I got much over 3 volumes of CO2, About, what is that? Is that 20% higher than 2.6? What, 8.5 to yeah. I would start thinking about going to thicker bottles. I don't know. I don't know exactly what the failure rate would be for each, increment of CO2. Certainly if you were going to go up to 4,
yeah.
then I would definitely. But yeah, for me, as just a rule of thumb, I would say start thinking about heavier bottles at 3.
A rule of sliced thumb when the bottle breaks in your hand.
Yeah.
use your own judgment, everybody. Do some research. Figure out what the safe of the bottles that you have on hand. See what's safe. So anything else on the raspberry wheat beer?
No, I think that's. I think that does it. If I was going to brew it, and I am, I would probably go review my brewing notes for previous German style Hefeweizens and sort of refresh my memory on all that. Because, another nice thing about brewing a beer like this is that the base beer itself is a good beer. So you could make a batch and, split it, half and half, or it doesn't have to be half and half, but any volume to any volume. You could have some, just bottle some of it normally and bottle some of it with the fruited version. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward, really. You got 2 malts, one kind of hop, one kind of yeast, fruit, and the rest is just technique. And I don't know, I like beers like that are not this like laundry list of stuff and nothing's just super overdone.
Yeah,
and where it takes the brewer's skill is what shows through the most.
Yeah, it's almost like a retro beer, now that you talked about, back in the old days, this was something that people would brew a lot. Back in the day. No, but when there was a brew pub down on Dixon Street in Fayetteville, here in Northwest Arkansas, and I think they actually did have a raspberry wheat, so it seems like a style that you don't so much see anymore. So cool.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
And I look forward to reading the next thing on beerandgardeningjournal.com. And looking forward to seeing how your garlic experiments work.
Yeah, nothing more exciting than reading a gardening blog in the middle of the winter. Woo! Feel the burn.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, Chris, and enjoy the rest of your holiday beers.
I certainly will.
Well, thanks again to Chris. I'm so relieved that you liked my beer. Well, he pretty much came up with the recipe, so he should like it, right? I'm just glad I didn't mess it up and send him a gusher or something. If you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to james@basicbrewing.com and just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com. And please don't forget to tell us where you're from. Check out our mobile-friendly shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody supporting us through our Patreon page. Special goodies coming your way. Check that out at patreon.com/basicbrewing. It's all until next time. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dodson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. In the meantime, stay well and stay tuned. So long.